Today we're braving the cold to go into the thrift store to find the ugliest art we can find to recreate. And this video is brought to us by Hungry Root. I love this so much. It's a little cold, but not a bad haul. We can redo this. It's got this 3D, I don't know, well, we could do something better than that. This, we could do something better than that, but we can do the nail string arts. And then, I don't know that we can do better than this, but we're gonna try. I love that so much. Ah, that's so good. That just screams 1974. I'm pretty darn excited about the pieces that we picked up. I don't know what we're going to do yet. The ideas will come to me. We'll figure it out. We'll see. This is everything that we're doing today is just on the fly. This is gonna be a fun one. It goes without saying that this one is my favorite of them. Where do we start? I think we'll start making the frames for these two guys, and I'm gonna make everything the exact size that they are. So let's see what we got in the closet and start cutting some wood. The frame on this guy has no profile, it's just super plain, but the back does have a rabbet to hold the back in. So this guy came out of the closet and we're going to measure the girth of that and make the rabbet out of this piece here to hold the guy that came out of the closet. So that is all the high piece. This is for the Mermaid, and we're gonna use a plywood back for that, so we're cutting more rabbets. So we're going to glue up our frames with my frame glue up clamp. So my clamp broke. All right, let's do it how Grandpa used to do it. I can't believe my clamp broke. Here's the thing, we got the overhead cam set up, right? Yep. And with the X pattern, it was all gonna look real cool. And people were gonna be like, that's a cool shot. And then here we are, not looking cool at all. Although I do have plans for the clamps if you wanna buy them. We good? Generally, when you're making picture frames, you have to reinforce the miters because there's potential they may break over time. What if this cutoff was already the exact size? What if? Oh, it's so close. Got it in one pass. So now we're gonna spinal tap these splines in there. While our spinal taps are drying, we can work on the frame for this guy. So we went to Home Depot. Normally I buy the good plywood, the Baltic birch, the good stuff, but this isn't using the good stuff. This is using that cheap plywood. So I went against everything that I stand for. I went to Home Depot. I never buy plywood from Home Depot. And I found some of this cheap stuff, which when I say cheap, I mean cheaply made. It's actually more expensive than the good stuff from the plywood dealer, which makes no sense. So, to create these scallops, I drew this up in Adobe Illustrator, and then I printed it out, and we are going to tile that together, and that is going to be my template that we're gonna glue on this board right here. I picked this board because it had the most ugly pine grain, because you can see some of the ugly pine grain on this guy peeking through from behind the lion. So let's get that together. Whoa, sometimes you don't know where it's gonna squirt. Two things I don't normally do is use a roundover bit on my project. I just don't like roundovers, and I don't stain my boards. You might think that is pretentious. You'd be right, but that's just how I grew up. We do things the right way. That actually looks pretty good. We have our 3 frames done, and I'm gonna take a completely different approach to each piece. So this is gonna be a mixture of woodworking, metalworking, photography, epoxy, and painting. But before we get to that, we need to make dinner, which is provided by today's sponsor, Hungry Root. If you are anything like me, you probably have run out of brain space. We have so many decisions to make all the time, and it's one of the reasons we don't eat healthy, because we just take the easy route, order food, go out to eat. And that is where today's sponsor, Hungry Root, comes in. They take care of that decision fatigue that we are all experiencing right now. My wife, Kelly, has been getting Hungry Root for years. We have different diets. She's a vegetarian. I don't eat vegetables, so we eat separate. So she's been getting Hungry Root for years, and now I finally have my own. Got some bread, some pasta. This is where we're getting to the good stuff here. This is what I'm looking for. Wagyu beef burgers. We've got bacon and short ribs. So when you get started with Hungry Root, it's gonna ask you a series of questions of your taste, your nutritional needs, and your desires. And it's gonna throw together a meal plan for you for as many days as you want or need. The great thing about it is you can go in and you can change the ingredients within the meal. You can remove meals, you can add meals. There's over 50,000 recipes to choose from. That is actually pretty mind-blowing. You can keep it as simple as Hungry Root does all the decision-making for you, and you don't have to think about it, or you can go in and customize it. The great thing about Hungry Root is it will learn your taste and desires over time, so it gets better with the recommendations. I am set for the next 6 days. All that clicking that you're hearing, those are my dogs walking around. This is Wally, this is Duke. As you can see, Duke wants some food too. All right. Hey guys, we gotta pay the bills. Something you don't know anything about. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Click the link below or go to hungryroot.com and use the code MAKESOMETHING. That's 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life at hungryroot.com with the code MAKESOMETHING. It was good. Now that I'm full, we get to head back into the shop and have some fun with the art pieces for these frames. We're gonna start with the Mermaid. I wanna stick with the Mermaid theme, so I'm being influenced by the original artwork. We drew up the skeleton, which I think it looks really freaking cool. I think this with string art is gonna be an excellent mixture of like scrapbook mom meets biker dad at Target. The super weird thing about the Mermaid one is it looks like it's written in blood, like a heart with an arrow through there. That excites me so much. I cut out 2 backs because this is pretty experimental to me. I'm gonna work with like this abstract thing here. So I am going to coat the back with black. Is that an AC/DC song? I'm gonna do 2 of them because this is all new to me. And this is very, very experimental. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm wondering if I can get some texture. Again, this is all experimental for me, but I want to now coat this with white and then scrape away some of the white so the black and the texture comes through. Again, this is all new to me. I've never done this before. This is just a technique that I've seen online. Let's let that dry. I ain't mad at that. Guess I can start calling myself an artist. I'm gonna take advantage of the tools that I have. I brought my artwork into Xtool Studio, and I'm gonna score that using my laser onto the board. And I don't want that scoring to be the final look. I just wanna transfer the artwork to the board so then I can ink over top of that. I've never lasered acrylic paint on wood, so let's hope this works. All right, so that is done. And it's probably a little too powerful because we have some burning on there, but this is just my tracing paper. So I'm gonna fill that in with ink. But yeah, that came out real good. I love that texture That texture's working well. All right, wiping off the burn marks here. I'm just using some India ink to ink it. I don't have a dipping pen, so I'm trying to use this toothpick. You don't want to use like a Sharpie for this because the Sharpie doesn't have pigments and it'll fade over time, as well as it'll look purpley. Where black India ink does have pigments, it won't fade or look purpley. This was hand-drawn on a digital iPad, but it was hand-drawn, so it had that hand-drawn look. And then we digitized it, even though it was already digital. This is not making any sense, is it? And then lasered it on there. And I think inking this like this brings back some of that handmade feel and gets rid of that digitalness. Because this isn't precise, it's kind of sloppy, but it kind of fits the whole texture of this, and it's working. I got the inking all done. I got 2 of them just in case, but it is time to start the string art part of this guy. And I now realized, I'm not good at thinking things all the way through. I now realize that this 1/8 inch board is not enough material to hold the nail. It will hold the nail, but the nail's gonna wanna move and come out as I'm doing the string art part. So I need to double this up. So I went ahead and cut another piece on the table saw, and we're going to glue and nail them together. I want all of the nails to be perfectly straight up and down, and I want them all to be the same height. So I went ahead and 3D printed this guy that's got a magnet in there that holds the nail straight up and down, and then also sets the depth height. My current plan is to put a nail on all of the corner points, so on the edges of the spine, and then somewhere in the middle, and then I can weave string through that. Like a spine has a really cool repeating pattern, and as a recovering graphic designer, I love repeating patterns, and the nails really add to that. So it looks cool with just the nails without the string art. I got some thread, cord, I don't know what this is called, but I got a bone colored and a black colored because I didn't know which one that I want. Thank you, sir. I didn't know which one I wanted. And then Jefferson suggested fishing line because it goes with the whole nautical water theme, which is freaking brilliant. As a nautical enthusiast myself, you would think I would know different knots, but I only would know one knot. The kindergarten knot. All right, so we got some fish hooks that we're going to just incorporate in here and bring it into the texture. There's a balance of like, how do I get this in here that's intentional but doesn't look intentional? It's got to be balanced, but it can't be too balanced. You know, it needs to look haphazard. The last thing that we need to do is it needs a pop of color because it's very black and white. So we're going to reproduce the hearts with an arrow through it that somebody drew on here. It's right on top of the glass. We're not adding any glass because that glass is going to cover up some of the cool textures that we have. So we're going to leave it exposed. But I am going to take a red paint marker and try to reproduce what they did. One of my many faults is I don't know when to call it quits. So I'm adding one more little bit of texture up here. I think it's just gonna help balance it out. Plus it's super fun. So that's what we're doing now. And I'm also gonna rub a little bit of this white acrylic over top of my arrow and then kind of rub it away so it looks faded, just like the glass here. This came out way cooler than I ever would have imagined. Because we doubled up the plywood to hold the nails, my rabbit in the frame is not deep enough. So we gotta go and fix that. Also, when I doubled it up, I wasn't careful and I didn't line up the 2 pieces of plywood and it's not gonna fit into the frame. So I also have to take this to the table saw and cut it down just a little bit so we can get it put in the frame. This is what happens when you work without a plan. A lot of good things can happen, but you find yourself just doing things over and over again because you don't think about the future. So that's a wrap on the Mermaid. Let's move over to the hello sign. Currently, this says hi. I am thinking it says something along the lines of, I like that. For the metal cutting part of the sign, we're gonna use the X-Tool Metal Fab. Now this machine does a lot of things, and here you see me using it handheld to break down some sheet goods. Cool thing about this guy is I can now go and put it inside this machine, multi-function, that goes into the CNC. So that same laser, instead of being handheld, is now computer controlled. I have Xtool Studio open here. I've imported my help, my script help. So I'm gonna take our sheet metal and I'm gonna throw it in here, shut this. Over on the computer, the screen is gonna update with our metal and we can just move this where we want it. We select our material, say if we wanna score it, engrave it, or cut it. We wanna cut it. We hit process. There it is. Look at that. That is absolutely beautiful. Super clean cut out of metal. I changed my mind. I think I want something a little dirtier. So we're going to hand draw some letters here. I'm thinking something like that. So, and then we cut this out of steel with a rusty steel background, and it'll have a little bit more dirt. Every time I use this machine, it feels like magic. The cuts are so clean. This is nothing like cutting with a plasma cutter. There's no cleanup to do afterwards. And it does other things that we're gonna talk about here in a second. And yes, this is quite the investment for a home shop. But if you have a product idea, you can invest the money into yourself instead of paying another company to make the product for you and go through the whole iteration process. And there are a couple of options to choose from. There's the 800 watt and the 1200 watt. And you don't have to get the CNC part of it. You can just buy the fiber laser for cutting and welding. That looks cool just like that. I like that so much better than that. I'll find a use for this, but I like that. Before I weld this piece to this piece, I want to create a little contrast. We're gonna force this guy to rust using a cool trick that I'll show you in a little bit. On this guy, I need to remove the rust and I wanna clean and polish this up. So this is a feature that I haven't used on this machine yet until today. So check this out. I know it's not real rusty, but it's getting rid of what we need. So the wand is meant for like large sheet goods, or like if you're working on a car, you can get rid of a lot of rust at one time. Also, be careful to not ruin your concrete. And again, we're using the metal fab to weld everything together. I've got a complete video that goes over everything that this machine can do, and there's gonna be links down below in the description. This looks so freaking good. So the back panel, I want to rust. So I'm gonna search YouTube, how to rust metal. Top result, this guy right here. Who's that? Who is that? Welcome to Make Something with me, David Picciuto. Hydrogen peroxide, a little bit of all-purpose vinegar, and then a pinch of salt. Hopefully I got the ratios right. And that should start, yep, it's rusting. It's already doing its thing. So we are mixing up some Total Boat epoxy. I put just a touch of purple dye in there, and I don't want it to be completely purple. And we're gonna brush it on the help part of the sign, and we're gonna let it drip off. And I'm thinking, for the most part, you're not gonna see the purple until it starts collecting where the drips are. The frame that we made earlier for this guy, we're gonna dye it black with some India ink. This is the way to go when you want wood to be black. I've been putting this one off. This is by far my favorite of the three pieces. I've been putting it off because I haven't thought of the right idea. And it's one of those situations where I told myself, stop overthinking. The moment you tell yourself to stop overthinking is when you overthink everything. I'm looking at this, and this is a moment in time. Like, why did somebody take a photo of a lion and encase it in epoxy and make it a thing that's going to be around forever? And so to me, the lion screams like masculinity and king of the jungle type thing. Do lions live in the jungle? I've been racking my brain. I've been taking notes on like, what is my interpretation of this? I'm not really a king of the jungle masculinity type dude. So what can I do that to offset this, but preserve the influence that this is giving me? I want to add a photo that when you see it, you have more questions than answers. And I also kind of want to stick with the 70s theme. What do I want to make as art that didn't ask to be made as art and that we preserve it forever? Right? I'm telling you, I told myself to not overthink this, and I totally overthought this. I wrote down, would this image feel absurd if I coated it in resin and charged $1,000 for, right? Like, I'm trying to make this like think piece. I'm really going all in on this. I realized when you pour epoxy onto something, you're turning whatever this is into something of importance. You're highlighting it, you're framing it, you're making it a memory. Sticking with the 70s theme, I found this calculator from the 70s, and it has that color scheme that I love, like the yellow, orange, brown, and black. So we are gonna take a photo of this calculator and encase it in epoxy on this frame. And the beauty of this is, I think in 20 years, somebody's really going to question why somebody has a photo of a calculator. And maybe they won't. Maybe this is one of those things that makes sense more in the future. In Photoshop, we're going to remove the calculator from the photo. So we only have the background. We're then going to print that background out, put it on the piece of wood, pour epoxy over top of that. Once that epoxy dries, then we're gonna go back to Photoshop and take out the background of the photo so we just have the calculator. And then we're going to print that out, cut out the shape of the calculator, put that over top of the epoxy, and then epoxy it again. So there's a layer of like 1/8 inch of epoxy between the foreground and the background. It gives it a little bit more depth. It gives it a little bit more importance. I'm going to interrupt this long over explanation for something that might be non-recoverable. I had some huge epoxy bubbles in the pour. Also, I should have waited to round over all those edges because that little reservoir that I made with the tape created a lot of residue that all had to be sanded off. So I had to sand all the scallops again, get it reshaped. And so now we have to restain. I had to drill out some epoxy bubbles, and I've never done this. This is a trick that I learned from John Lehman, is when you have epoxy bubbles, drill them out, pour a second coat. Check out John Lehman. His channel is absolutely amazing. So my original pour is not as thick as I imagined. So when we cut out the calculator to put it on here, I don't think it's gonna have that depth that I'm looking for. I'm not sure if this one is going to meet my expectations. I had high hopes for this one. I might just be hanging up the lion in my office and burning this guy. So we mixed up some more epoxy. This is the second pour, second and final pour. We're just gonna let it drip over the edges. I'm really, really hoping that this fills my epoxy errors from earlier. Hopefully this one is savable. We did all, let's come up just a little. I was gonna sit, now I gotta stand. I'm so angry that I have to stand now. This did not meet my high quality standards. We did all that work of adding the epoxy and the color and the glitter to it. And when I looked at it, it just looked too glossy. I was editing the video and I was going back to previously in this project, and I'm like, it looks so much better before we did anything to it. So I went and I sanded all of the epoxy off. I got rid of all of the drips, and now we have this super high contrast between the front and the background. I'm much happier with it. This is the story of my life. I never know when to stop when it comes to art, at least for me, I never know when to stop. I just know when I'm happy. I would like to thank my top Patreon members this month: Master of None, Letters to Words, Andy from P10 Workshop, Jeremy Johnstone, Jim from Wiserbees, Chris from Hoffman Woodworks, Glenn Rogers, BJ Smith Art, Jason Ramos, X2 Crafted Chaos, Ron from Gnomeworks, and Jonathan Ransom. Patreon members get access to our private Discords, discounts to the store, and a lot more. I think the moral of the story here is you can pull inspiration from anywhere. I would have never made these 3 pieces if I didn't get these other 3 pieces from the Goodwill. And I am really, really happy with 2 of them. One of them, it didn't meet my expectations. Jefferson feels otherwise, but that's how it goes, right? Art should be a conversation piece. It should be loved and hated at the same time. The high to help signs, I wanted something with just a little bit more question to it. And this is one of those projects where I did too much and I didn't need to add all of that epoxy, and I'm really glad that I sanded it away, because now there's some good contrast between the foreground and the background. I could see this project inspiring other projects very similar to this. So it's funny that I get something from the Goodwill that inspires me to make this. The thing that I make might inspire me to make something different, maybe a little bit more elaborate. If I can inspire myself, I have won. The Mermaid art. Oh man, I love this. This is definitely something that I never ever would have made. There's a potential that I would have done something similar with the help sign in the future, but this took me in a direction I never would have chosen myself. And that really opens up a lot of possibilities. I learned some great techniques of thickening the acrylic. String art? I'm not a string art dude, but maybe I am now. It forced me to draw something that I've never drawn. I'm not really a skull and bones type dude. This one is my favorite. It exceeded my expectations. I still have the one that I never finished, and I don't want to make 2 of the same art. So if you have some suggestions on what I should do with the unfinished one, let me know. Jefferson and I have different opinions on the we have different opinions on everything, but especially the calculator art. He said it's his favorite. It is my least favorite. You can see the 3D-ness, how the calculator is in front of the background, but you kind of have to look for it, or you might look at it, you might stare at it and like something is different, but it's not like pops out in your face. It's cool. I don't know if it's going to make my art show cut that is coming up in June. The other 2, I believe, are going to go to the art show. This one is questionable. One of my favorite things in the world is to take thrifty items and transform them into something else. So if you like this video, you're definitely going to like the video where I took this found free chair and turned it into a side table. It is quite the transformation. That is going to wrap it up. I have details to my art show down below. As always, be safe, have fun, stay passionate, and unsubscribe from the noise.